Hi everyone, welcome back to Country Cow Designs. I'm Jo, this is my husband Adam.
Hey up.
Today we've got something quite different for you. So normally we sew bags on a domestic sewing machine, but today instead we've got a bag that requires no sewing whatsoever.
Hence the name No Sew Tote.
So this is Adam's design. Adam loves working with leather, and it's not something that generally you use on a domestic sewing machine because, you know, it can quite often be too thick. So this bag is really quite different to anything we've done. You can see that it's constructed on the sides with rivets, and it's got no lining because being leather, it doesn't really need it, does it?
No.
No.
That's it.
So this is all Adam's little project. We've got another sewing crossbody coming up soon, haven't we?
Very soon, yeah.
So in the meantime, I will leave you with Adam because this is his little baby and I'm going to let you take care of this one.
Thank you. Right, so yeah, it's just me for this one. So Joe's actually working on that crossbody as we speak, so that will follow shortly after this. So if you're not into leather, then I'm not offended, don't worry. You can look forward to that crossbody that's coming out a bit later. So the concept behind this bag was, if you don't know leather, you've never used it before, then this is a great place to start. There's no stitching, there's no hand sewing, there's no gluing, there's no machine sewing. If you can set rivets and cut with a blade, then you can make this bag. It's really, really simple. So just a few tips on how to go about deciding or planning for the bag. These two here are made with veg tan leather. So that means it's a little bit stiffer. It also means it can be a little bit thinner. So this is 1.6 mil Pueblo veg tan, two colors here, really nice to work with. This is good quality leather. This here is 2 mil chrome tan, so it's a bit thicker, but being chrome tan, it's a bit squishier, a bit softer. Chrome tan is usually a bit cheaper, so if this is your first bag using leather, chrome tan may be where to go. Now this leather, which me and Joe have called cowboy leather because we can't remember the name of it, we pulled this out of the discount sheds at AA and Crack & Sons in Northampton. Awesome guys up there, and they've got this huge shed just full of old discount leather. So if you're looking to start with leather and you're near them, pop and see them, you can grab some really good deals. And that's what this is. Pueblo veg tan leather is a bit more expensive. The thing with this bag, there's not a lot of construction, it's quite simple, so the quality of the bag is very much in the materials you use. So if you're comfortable with the leather and you've perhaps made one with chrome tan and you're okay with it, stepping up to a nice quality leather is going to give you a really nice bag for essentially the same amount of effort. Now if Joe, who's actually still hiding off camera, if you can pass me one of those little trays, the mini basket thing. Thanks, Joe. So a few weeks ago, we released this free pattern. Now, that wasn't by coincidence, it was setting you up for this bag. Now, if you've had a go at making this, then you can make this as well. It really isn't as hard as it looks. Now, in the video, and I do say this later on, I perhaps make it look fiddlier than what it really is. It is fiddly because the rivets are in tight areas, but try and get it on camera and make it look more effort than what it really is. If you take your time, it's all possible. Take your time cutting out the paper pattern. If you can keep that really accurate, it's going to make your life a lot easier when assembling the bag. Take your time cutting the leather as well, and I'll just share a few tips of how I cut out my leather. So the leather we're going to use for this bag is this fantastic leather right here. Now, I'm rubbish at remembering names, so Joe's going to help me. What leather is this again?
This one's by Badalassi, which is the same tannery that you get the Pueblo from.
Yeah, that's right.
But this one is called Buttero. I probably pronounced it wrong because I think
Butero,
they're Italian.
it's probably Italian accent.
But it's Butero Museum version,
Yeah.
which is why it's got that print on it, sort of.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's
that
a
effect.
Yeah, it's a museum leather, which is a term referred to a leather. You'll see it on camera that it's got almost like a marble effect to it. It's very glossy, quite posh looking, but again, because it's veg tan, fairly easy to work with and actually quite forgiving in how you work with it. So that's what we'll be using. For the straps, which the same ones here,
that's going to be the Horween leather.
Horween.
So Horween tannery in the USA.
That's it.
And that's called Dublin leather, but that's the nut brown colour. They do quite a few different colours.
That's right. If you've watched our channel for a while, you know Jo is amazing at just retaining knowledge of all the materials she works with. Even though I work with leather, I'm shocked at remembering where it came from or the name of it. So I often refer to Jo for these sorts of things. Of course, you can just make it out of the same leather, like this bag here. My mum actually claimed this one for herself. Absolutely fine to make it the same colour. Just be aware of how thick the strap is. You don't really want to be below 1.5, 1.6 mil on a veg tan leather. 2 mil is probably a little bit better. So we'll make a start. This is not a complicated bag. It's quite simple, a little bit fiddly in areas. So I'll share a few tips as we go through the tutorial, and hopefully you enjoy making the bag as much as I did.
Oh, and there's one more thing we need to add.
I knew there'd be one more thing.
Yeah. So if you do like leather, make sure that you subscribe to the channel because Adam has got something new coming soon this week.
I'll save this to the end, but okay, you can't wait, can you?
Adam's got himself a Sailrite Fabricator sewing machine, which is amazing with leather. So if you like leather, he's going to have a sewing machine that's actually capable of sewing leather, aren't you?
Yes. Now,
once he's got it set up.
Depending, we haven't actually received it yet, but by the time we release this video, I should have it set up. So if it's set up, I'll put a picture of it up now. But if it's not set up, I've just wasted your time. But hopefully it'll be set up. You won't see it in any videos for a while because
we need to get used to using it, don't you?
We need to learn how to work it properly. But don't worry, it's not replacing the domestic.
No, all my stuff will still be on a domestic sewing machine. It's just that Adam's decided he really, really wants to go into leather, and using a domestic sewing machine with leather just isn't
It doesn't work. You can't do it. We'll break the old girl.
So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that'll be in our social medias and things like that. But
yeah, you can always follow us on Facebook or Instagram if you want to keep up to date. Just look for Country Cow Designs and you can follow us on there.
Yeah, so you're going to carry on with the crossbody. I'm going to make this for you. And hopefully at the end of the video, this will be a great looking bag. If you're a bit nervous about cutting out leather, maybe you bought a nice piece of leather and you want to make sure you do it properly, a nice little tip is to have the ruler placed over the leather you're wanting to keep. That way, if you wander with the blade, you'll wander into the part of the leather that's going to be thrown away or as a scrap. You'll notice I'm using a quilting ruler when cutting out the leather. Not a usual thing for cutting out leather, but I find it really helpful as it helps me just to make sure that all my cuts are 90 degrees and all the straightened corners. So there we have our panel, our pattern piece all cut out. So at this stage, you could just go straight into assembly, lifting the sides up and closing it into a bag. For me, however, I like to take a little bit of time and make sure all the edges look really nice. That's sort of taking it to the next level. So I'm actually going to burnish all the edges in this bag. That is going to take a while, so I won't make you watch as I do all this, but it's quite a simple process and there are various ways that you can do this. Now you'll see that I'm using a wooden burnisher, a wooden slick tool, and I'm using a little bit of Tokanao gum. I think I pronounced that correctly. This helps just to soften the edge. You don't need to put too much pressure. It helps just to polish the edge and make it a little bit smoother. That will work on this leather I'm using because this is a veg tan leather. If you're using a chrome tan leather, you probably won't be able to do this. Usually with chrome tan leather, you have to use an edge paint to finish off the edges. I've burnished all the edges now. So that does take quite a while. In my opinion, I think it's worth it. I actually quite enjoy burnishing and just smoothing off all the edges, but you don't have to. It's one of the good things about leather is that you don't need to. You can leave raw edges. So you'll see that I've already fitted the bag feet in place. This is probably the best time to do this now. Very simple. Our bag feet, the screws are a little bit too long, so I've just cut out some coins and just use that to put it in place. Depending on what bag feet you're using, that may not be an issue, but that's what I've done for that. I've also off camera cut out the straps. All the dimensions are in the instructions. So I've cut these out using a darker leather, veg tan. Again, this is actually Halloween doubling leather, really nice, great for straps. And again, I've burnished and smoothed all this off as well. You will notice that on my strap, I've only got one hole. So this is the pattern piece that comes in the instructions. Helps you just to mark the holes on the end. Now you can cut both holes all at the same time if you wish. But what I like to do is cut one, I then loosely fit that to the bag, and then I can mark the second one to make sure that it fits exactly to the holes already cut on the bag. But don't fit the straps now because they'll just get in the way of working with the rivet press. So they're all done. We'll put those to one side, and then the next step is now to get your rivets, the rivet press, and start assembling the bag. To fit the rivets, to start assembling the bag, you want to have the leather flesh side up or wrong side up, depending on which terminology you use. The finished side laying down. Now you want to make sure you start assembling these areas with the correct starting rivet. That makes it a bit easier when we start bringing it all together. So I'm using our black cap rivets. I think it'd be a nice subtle look with the red museum leather. And I will be fitting it using a rivet press. Hopefully you've got one of these. This will make it a lot easier. But if you don't, that's not really an issue. You can set rivets by hand using some basic tools, very easy to get hold of. Alternatively, you can use Chicago or those screw rivets. That would actually be quite an easy option for this bag. The only thing you have to bear in mind is that your rivet holes will probably be too small for a Chicago rivet, which means you'll have to make these a bit bigger. But that'll be all. The rest of it will be fine. So to get started, we'll get our first rivet. Now what you want to do, it's these two holes here that you want to start with. Now we're only going to do one side at a time to make sure we're getting it right. So we start with a rivet on the outside, using the post that makes it a bit easier. And then we bring it around and fit it through into the hole. Now it depends on the leather you're using. This can be quite tricky. It could be quite stiff. And obviously it has been designed to be a tight fit to make sure nothing drops out of your bag. So usually I just loosely fit the rivet so it brings the leather up, creates the corner. Grab a second rivet and we'll now bring up the other side of the bag. Now this is probably the trickiest part of the entire process, because now we're going through 3 layers of leather. So it's all very doable, just take your time. It will be tight, but leather will resist you sometimes, depending on what you've got, but it should all go in place. So again, we start from the outside. We bring this one through in between this tab and this flap here. So it's sandwiched in here, and then we fit the back of the rivet. So it's going to be a bit stiff doing all this. But we want the corners to be nice and stiff, as that gives a lot of shape to the bag then. I'm pushing on the back of the rivet. Now they are just loosely fitted. And you'll see now here that we've got our shape, and this creates a lot of the structure for the bag, this nice tight junction, I guess, these layering of leathers on this corner. So with those in place, you can just get an idea. I like to just put some tabs in place, just see how it's all going to fit. It is meant to be nice and tight. And there we see the rivets on the inside of the bag. So we're going to set those rivets now using the press. Now I find it's easier to almost put the rivet press inside the bag. So we'll just put it open here a bit. Now this is where it does get tricky. It's a simple process, but it can be fiddly. So you wrap the bag around your rivet press until you can reach. So hopefully the camera is picking this all up. So we see here that the rivet press is inside the bag. Now just be mindful of the rivets you're using. I'm going to use a bit of cloth just to protect them because apparently I'm a bit heavy-handed with these, so I don't want to damage rivets as I set them. So I'm going to put it in place, and then I'm just going to try and find it. There's a little bit of doing this by feel because you can't see both sides of the bag at once that easily. But after this, it gets a lot easier. So I've got my rivets located on the press. I'm going to push that in. That rivet is now set. And I'm going to do the other one while I'm here as well. So I'm just going to pull the rivet press out and just make sure that I've got all this okay. Yep, that's all in place. So those two rivets are by far the hardest to set on the bag, and you'll find on the other side, again, it's quite tricky. As you work your way up the bag, it gets easier and easier, as you can imagine. And obviously, depending on the thickness of your leather, it's going to resist you a bit as you work your way up. But once you've got that two in, it's going to get a lot easier. So I'm just now going to basically work my way up the bag, up the side. I'm just going to do all the tabs up this side, setting one rivet at a time. And of course, if you've got Chicago rivets, you could do all the rivets at once, potentially. As we have to feed the rivet press down into the bag each time, we've got to do one at a time. Obviously, I'm trying to get some camera for you guys, so making it a bit trickier. So make sure that they're all set correctly. The tabs should be on the outside. I have set them with a tab underneath, which is very frustrating because then you've got to try and remove the rivet. But they should be set in like this as you come up. It is going to be nice and tight. It's a good tight fit. So we'll finish going up the side of the bag. So our first side is all assembled. So that creates our first side, which I think is actually quite a pleasing pattern. It's not just about function, it's got to look good as well. So with that one side done, we now move on to the second side. Again, this is the tricky bit, so just take your time. Again, we want to start with the right hole, and that's these two here. We'll match these two up first. So start with the outside, put the post in, and bring it around. And there it goes. there you go, loosely fit the rivet. Now we're going to do the same to the other side. Oops, that's one right. Start with the tab, catch the outside before we come back into the flap on the interior of the bag. Again, doing this kind of by feel really. Having your fingers over the hole, we push it through. Come underneath, I'm just going to put the cap onto the post of the rivet. Again, just to loosely fit it. And then so this is probably a good time to, again, just check everything before you actually fit the rivets. Make sure it's all nice. I'm a tiny bit off there, but for me, that's acceptable. I am not a perfectionist. It's worth mentioning at this point is if you find that, especially this second corner, it's not quite lining up quite how you want it, you can just widen the rivet holes just a tiny little bit, or cut one slightly a little bit longer. Obviously you can't go too far because it all needs to remain under the rivet caps, but just allowing that little bit of room just might get you a nicer finish, and it won't jeopardize the integrity of the bag. So same again, and now we're going to rivet this. Now we're again getting a bit harder again because the bag's closing up over the rivets press, but a bit of patience, it's all absolutely doable. So we'll keep going and add the remaining rivets just like we did on the other side, with the tabs on the outside. And we set our last rivet. And bam! We have something that resembles a bag. So just good just to work all the creases. Just make sure it's all sitting nice. I'm actually quite happy with that. As I said, it's fiddly getting the rivets in. I made it look hard because I'm trying to do it suitable for camera. But a little bit of time, a bit of patience, and it's all doable. So now we have the structure complete, we can now actually go and fit our straps. So fitting the straps is pretty easy, but just picking up on that point I made earlier, I left one of the holes uncut. So for me, I won't guarantee myself that I will cut these exactly the same as cutting these based upon the pattern piece. So what I like to do is I grab one rivet, put the post through, put that on the bottom hole, fit the cap, just click it into place so it's loosely fitted. There we go. I'll do the same the other side. So now what we can do, I get an awl and I just place it through the hole, and I just actually mark the back of the strap as it comes in on the center. Hopefully you can see that. Give it a little push, and that creates a mark on the leather piece. Come along with my hole cutter, Oh, didn't quite do that one. And now I fit it. And I can be happy that it's going to be a nice, tight fit. So we see here that there's no lifting or buckling or anything. It's a nice, flush finish by doing it that way. So I'm going to do the same the other side. With those loosely fitted, take them over to the press. Right way around would have Adam. Again, you're kind of working into the bag here a little bit. We're going to set these in place. They're all nicely in place, so just repeat the same process on the other side now. So how did the bag turn out? Pretty good, if I don't mind saying so myself. It complements the colour range, I think.
You just need a blue one now.
Yeah, I just need a blue one now, which, who knows, that will probably happen. I actually quite like making this bag. That may not have come across on video, but when you're not having to worry about the video, it's a lot easier, and I've really enjoyed making it. And every time a friend has popped round to see us, they're pretty much claiming one of these bags, so we'll have none left for ourselves. So maybe Jo will keep hold of this one. She also likes the mustard one, which is quite nice. But as all totes, really practical, easy going bag. Car looks posh, but also pretty relaxed as well. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you give leather a go. If you've never worked with leather, it can feel quite intimidating. I assure you, leather, it really is not that scary. In fact, I find it so much easier than working with fabric. It feels so much more basic. So if you're looking to try a new skill, add to your repertoire or things you can do, expand your bag making, give leather a go. Get some scrap leather, get some cheap leather, have a go, make the mistakes. But I think you'll be really impressed in what you can do with it. Even just using simple rivets like this bag. So Jo's still working on her crossbody. That will be coming out towards the end of the month. So this is beginning of March. There'll be one at the end of March. So yes, 2 patterns in 1 month. That is the plan. So I think me and Jo will need a break after that. But after the Cedron backpack, we had so many ideas. So we've just tried to get them all down for you guys. And we've got a lot more patterns coming on after that. So thanks so much for joining for this one. Jo will see you on the next one. But yeah, thanks for joining us.